Hello again my friends, this is the boy and his dog, and welcome to the channel where I play, rank and review every game released on the Evercade, old and new. Before we begin, I have to really thank you. I didn't know if the video last week would be of interest, as it was something new for me and the channel, so I was so happy with the results. With some decent chunky thought out responses from quite a few of you, I will admit I do always really dig the positive atmosphere in the comment section, and that's all on you guys. Always a joy to catch up with you all and hear your thoughts. And you're always respectful of each other too. Brilliant. In today's second episode of Ever Thoughts, we look back at your responses to last week's episode, which itself will lead into today's second topic. But before all that, the first thing we are going to talk about today is a brand new patch that dropped a couple of days ago. Now, I would have tried to get this video out then, but I needed time to test it all, and then shenanigans always get in the way. You know, I think my gravestone will say, "Here lies Stevie, his life ended how he always lived, surrounded by shenanigans." Or simpler, death by shenanigans. So first up, let's take a goosey gander at the new patch notes, which we can all take a look at by going to the Evercade website. Bear with, bear with. Right, so the January 2024 update brings many new features to the Evercade VS and EXP systems, so we thought we'd take you through some of them in more detail. So this is obviously bringing it back, what they had to take away, didn't they, at the end of last year. After many community requests, we have been working on implementing a turbo fire function into the Evercade systems. Holding down a turbo fire button simulates rapidly pressing the regular fire button, allowing multiple shots to be fired quickly in succession. And we've got a full list of what they're doing it on first. So for Technos Arcade, we've got Battle Lanes Volume 5, thank God. Data East has 2 games, Breakthrough and Darwin 4078. Bloody we need it in that one, won't we? Jellicoe, we have 2 titles, P47 The Phantom Fighter and Saint Dragon. Irem Arcade Collection, which we have a look at in a minute. It's got Battle Chopper in the Hunt and R-Type. Toplan Arcade has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Helcom Flying Shark, Tiger Heli, Truxton and Zero Wing. And Toplan Arcade 2 has Fire Shark, Hellfire, Twin Cobra and Twin Hawk. The default turbo fire button is Y on the Evercade, as I will keep thinking bloody triangle. Controllers and handheld. In some cases where there are 2 distinct fire buttons, X will fire the secondary shot using turbo fire. So they cannot be remapped, so they're stuck as they are for the moment. And they don't work on Tate mode. So that's something to think about. And then of course we've got the high scores. We've now made an update to support arcade games which save your high scores automatically without having to use save states. This means whenever you exit the game and return to it later, your high scores will be just as you left them. Now I have tried this out and it does work. So I do hope there is an option to reset them if you want, which I haven't seen yet, because I did try it out, but I loaded up an old save of, I can't remember, what game did I load up? It was R-Type, but I had one saved from a later level, so I just quickly did that up to try out the auto-fire as well, and when I died, it automatically did a high score, but it was from like a later level, so I feel like I might have slightly cheated there. It went straight to the top, so I hope we can reset so I can start back from the beginning there, but that's by the by. Right, so other improvements that they're talking about here is about the save state. So obviously we've got 2 different ways of games, especially 32-bit games. They need memory cards, and so they're virtual, what is it called here? Random access memory, yep, and they're called virtual memory cards. Now I have noticed this before, obviously when I'm creating footage for my channel, I don't just record the whole game, so what I do is I play through the whole game first and make saves at various points that look interesting, so then I can reload them to get footage there. Now in some games you want to do more, so you have to use the in-game saves as well, and it can be a bit of a fuddle, so it's good that they're trying to sort that out, because I know there is sometimes some issues. Now we do have some further patches to look at, so I'm going to look at the VS patches, because EXP will be quite similar. So we've got a new force patch cartridge, which means I think it means you can just do it manually rather than kicking up when you put a cart in. Obviously they've added the turbo fire and high scores. Now important updates for Pico Interactive 3, finally we can complete Legends of Wukong, which we were really needed. There's a fix for Data East with loading. Good Boy Galaxy is quite a few. I mean, the game seems to be fine here, but they've got added cutscene content, so that sounds cool. I don't know what that is. Duke Nukem, which is the most important because I could not save that game. I have various saves on it to do my review, and none of them worked. Now, I have tried it since the patch, and it does work. So I can now, if people want, carry on doing my reviews for Duke Nukem. We'll get to that in a minute. There's also, it also says here that they've got improved performance, which will help. And they're saying about the lighting in some of these 3D games, because they are definitely dark, aren't they? I've noticed that in Duke Nukem, around some areas you just can't bloody see a thing, on my big telly anyway. It seems to work alright on the Super Pocket and the XP though, it doesn't come out so bad. And then it carries on with list of where they've added high scores and Turbo Fire. So that's it for the patch notes, right. So let me know what you think about all the upgrades. And I'm just going to show you quickly, we're looking in the hunt and R-Type. If you look down here at the controls, if you look at Y and X there for Turbo, and again on R-Type, and I'll just show you in game, not that I can really show you per se, but this is me just hammering the button normally. Gets a bit tiring after a while, and then this is me using the turbo buttons. It definitely saves saves a lot of energy. They might be able to map it later. It's fine on triangle then. I keep saying triangle, why? Sorry, it's the top button. Too many years of PlayStation. And of course we had to try out R-Type. See, normally if you hold down the button, it's just a power-up move. So you've got to remember that is on a separate button now when you use that for bosses. But again, yeah, it does make it save so much energy so you can concentrate on bloody avoiding everything. Oh, I do love this game. I won't play it for long, I promise. And next we're going to talk about your comments from last week's episode, and there were some great ones. I can't cover everything, but we can talk in general. I am very happy to hear some of you were drawn to the Evercade due to the mighty legendary platinum tier character of all time, Dizzy. Can we start up the Eggy Crew? Hashtag Eggy Crew forever. Is that how it works? It's funny, I think it's definitely a British thing, yeah. What people I see were most looking forward to, I'm not surprised at all about a lot of you wanting more arcade titles, but maybe resigning to the fact we may not get that many again. When the roadmap of 2024 hits, I'm sure we'll have a lot to probably throw some hints our way as well along the way. And Super Pockets, it's groovy to hear that for some this was the entry point, and from a lot of articles I've seen around the launch, it seems it is agreed it is a great entry point. So we are basically agreeing that the Super Pocket is the gateway drug to Evercade. Now, a Konami Super Pocket, never even thought about that until Gene Joke mentioned it in the comments. How cool would that be, as long as it's not a collection of recreated pachinko machines? Can you imagine? Konami definitely fits the mould of companies that will let Blaze have the game stuck on a portable device but not allow a cart, like Namco and other bigger names. But it's still cool we can get them in some way, as long as the game selection is good. Metal Gear Solid 1 on a Super Pocket, can you imagine? I could imagine it would be more likely we'd get games like the admittedly awesome Parodia series and things like that. A few have said they'd be happy if Full Void is the only solo game we get, but I think we will be getting at least a couple more. Would love to know what the rest of you guys think about that. Are you bothered by solo games, or is it okay if the game is really good and worth it? And what even does that mean? Definitely let me know your thoughts on that. I hope you don't mind Kenneth mentioning you to link into the next topic today. I think you may be the only one to point out about being fed up with the modern systems. You'd much rather be a dinosaur riding a skateboard, and I love it. That is another great reason for Evercade in a lot of ways, and my Mila, do I sound like an old crotchety saying this, but sometimes we do like how simpler things were. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I think there is more to say here about how modern consoles are moving. Funnily enough, while I was writing up for this episode, the news came out about what someone in Ubisoft said, and another quote that darn it I can't find, but we will get to that in a minute. But what perfect timing, and so begins today's third topic. Okay, so this is about modern systems, so it's a bit of a divergence, but I think it hammers a point home. A recent comment from a guy at Ubisoft. Now admittedly I think his department is subscriptions of some kind, so it makes sense it come from his mouth, but still, gamers have to get comfortable not owning the games they play. That may not be the exact quote, but you get the gist. Now some responses, and I don't blame them, say it's okay to pirate then. Totally. And a fair few say this is another reason why they are moving more and more away from modern games and moving towards retro. Not everyone, and it could be more weighted to the older generation, but a fair few don't want this. It seems to be more that companies want it, and let's admit, the younger generation, who I guess are more used to having this kind of stuff around and the convenience, are happy to just follow along with it and think it's okay. Maybe not looking at all sides. Or are people like me maybe over worrying about it all? But the signs have been there with streaming films and TV series services. Allow me now to go off all tangent-y and link it back round at the end. Alright? So what began as just a handy service, what appeared to be more convenient, kinda isn't anymore. Shows never to be released on physical if are trapped on streaming sites, so we can't ever see them as gorgeous as they can be seen. And if your internet signal isn't up to it, which let's be fair is patchy as feck, at least in UK, I can't speak for other countries. Right, let's pick a show, Sense8 for instance, on Netflix, an absolutely beautiful show made by the legendary JMS of Babylon 5, the real Ghostbusters and even Murder She Wrote fame, with the Wachowskis, if I said their name right, of the awesome Matrix series amongst other things, which I'll admit I'm not into all of it, but the eye for visuals and details can't really be faulted. They crafted an absolutely stunning world and more with Sense8. It even had Sylvester McCoy. How it didn't end up running for years because of the fact alone the professor was in it, I just don't understand. It could have been ace. But it's trapped on Netflix, never a physical release, and if Netflix ever stop being the prominent service and have to cut like others have, they could at some point just remove it and it's gone forever. All that work by all those people trapped there and then eventually lost, like Disney and other places have started to do. Foundation on Apple is absolutely stunning. Will that ever get a physical release? And films. These sites add and remove films willy-nilly. Older shows too. Without physical, you are a slave to what they decide to have there. So now let's think about all that and look at video games and imagine that the whole thing was just like Netflix or Disney Plus. That was the only way to play games. I think it's the worst possible future for video games, isn't it? Of course it's not just streaming. Even now a lot of it's digital downloads. Is this just a me thing? I'm fine paying a couple of quid for a simple game, but there is no way on earth I'm going to be spending upwards of £50 to £80 on a digital game. It still, to this day, feels absolute insanity, but in more and more cases it's the only way we can get to play some of these games. And I say play and not own, as it's been made very, very clear that a downloaded game isn't owned. You don't own the game, you've just paid for the license to play it or some such. Which leads me on to another article I read, which damn it I forget to bookmark at the time, but some, in brackets as many as you can get away with it I'm sure, want to charge 80 to 100 for a game. Now imagine if that was just the digital model. I can see why that would push people to a subscription if they were the only two options available, as it just seems cheaper. And game companies are getting increasingly frustrating. One of my favourites, and I'm sure for a few of you especially with their older retro games, Sega. The greed has even infiltrated my beloved Yakuza Like a Dragon of late. Gaiden being digital only, which pained me no end, and now with the next instalment, the New Game Plus is behind a paywall. This of course was on top of their atrocious releasing of the Sonic collection, first digital only with a paywall behind basic features. Then when a new enhanced version came out, they finally released it on disc, but only the original base game with the enhancements needed, an in-game code to unlock and download. Honestly Sega, what's the crack with you guys? Please just stop doing this. Of course you're just going to keep on, but it's a continual shitty look and undoes all the admittedly good work you produce. But people pay. You get the money, so it goes on. And I'm guilty of this. I bought Like a Dragon Gaiden, which is digital only. It's a continuation of the story in Yakuza 6, runs alongside Yakuza Like a Dragon number 7, and sets up Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, the 8th mainline title. So what's a guy to do? And they know it. Oh crikey, I think that's probably been the most soapboxy I have ever been. I will get down off my box now and chill. So the light in this dark, fetid future though is something like Evercade. Yes, it's a retro machine, but more than that, it's a modern console range that have physical cartridges, with new ones coming out every year, even now in 2024, and hopefully for many more years to come. That alone needs to be applauded. Now it would be interesting down the road if if they will, maybe with a newer machine or bigger cart to have more modern retro games. By now, later generations are very much still retro. 8-bit, 16-bit have been reissued a lot over the years. Though I'd never say done to death because I bloomin' love them, we are starting to see more 32-bit games. It's definitely time that some later retro eras need to be touched on now, in some fashion. Through Evercade or console minis, as they will never totally get out of favour, will they? I love them. So what do you think about all this, the Ubisoft comment, and the future of modern consoles as a whole? Does it excite you, or are you getting more and more turned off as we get older? And what do you think about the retro future? Will we ever get beyond 8-bit and 16-bit, except for the occasional dabbles in 32-bit? Do you think Evercade will ever in the future start bringing out more recent retro titles, licensing costs and emulation allowed, of course? And so I'm finally going to finish off and put to you a few thoughts about this channel, if you don't mind. What do you guys want me to do about previous game reviews, as we got a bit behind during December? Do you still want them, or do we count my complete ranking series as a kind of blanket review of every cart up to this point and we start fresh with the new carts this year? Or would you just like me to do some highlights, like finish off the Duke Nukem series now they've finally patched the carts? Or is there any other specific games I haven't covered yet you'd really like me to review, or maybe do a couple of videos on older carts that came out before this channel began? Let me know, as always, in the comments below. Now, I think I've covered everything on my mind right now, but whenever I think of something else or new Evercade info drops, be sure I'll be here to natter on about it with all you guys. And if you've made it here to the end of the episode, thanks ever so much for joining me. Leave a thumbs up or comment if you'd like. Either way, I'm just chuffed you poked your head in for a goosey gander. As always, I hope you're having the most awesomest of days, my friends. And until next time, be seeing you.